I appreciate you jumping on Zoom here with me this afternoon. And I just want to thank you, first off, for really helping our firm. When we first met you, we were really struggling to really convert leads, figure out how we present ourselves to other advisors. And you really taught me that we're not selling MSOs.
Yeah, I remember that conversation.
We may have a specialty, be subject matter experts in that, but really, we're helping advisors convert and win marquee clients. That's what we do.
Yeah, I remember. And you have a challenge, like you don't go direct. You did in your private practice, but now you've developed a strategic partners practice. You have this network of advisors. So you're one level removed from the end client. So now you have to co-author your strategies or your MSO advice, not only with the client, but also with the advisor that's bringing you in. And that poses particular challenges. So I remember you talking about the challenge, people like, hey, I need an MSO proposal.
Yeah. Well, when we first started, we thought we could just sell this concept of tax savings as a great idea and people would buy that all day long. Turns out we converted hardly any cases. And we came to you, frankly, out of desperation because what we were doing was not working. And I remember when we first engaged you, we were talking about, what the cost would be. And I thought, you know what, I can't afford it, but I can't not afford it, right? If I don't do this, I may not have a business. So that was kind of some of the back end with Mike, who's our co-founder, discussion. Look, we don't have a choice. What we're doing is not working. And it would be insanity.
I love how humble you are. It's ironic. Whoever's listening to this interview or recording, they don't know 10 minutes ago, you showed me with pride the fees. You got two economic engines, the fees they do for feasibility for an MSO, and then the administration of them. And before they were, I won't share the numbers, they were low 6 digits. And
Yes.
Now they're high 7-figure. So that's pretty cool. And your pipeline, you showed me 8 figures, and it's healthier. And I think that's the thing that you want to share in this interview is it goes back to what you said. Your job's not to run MSOs. Your job is to help advisors win marquee clients. And you just happen to do that with your expertise and your specialized knowledge around MSOs. So that's really cool. So put this in context, Alex. What was it that allowed you to show me a spreadsheet, which was evidence that you're helping advisors win cases, evidence that you're delivering high quality and actionable advice to advisors and their clients in ways you weren't doing before? Before, you were treating the MSO as nothing more than a good idea, and it created stalled deals. Tell us a little bit about what you were doing before and why it was no longer working, and then we'll get into your new method so advisors can understand what it would be like if they brought in your firm.
Sure. So originally, we fell under this belief that if we simply presented a generic proposal to a client and stated to that business owner that you could save taxes and use that cash, they would want to do business. The reality is we didn't even get the client's name sometimes on that. We would have an advisor call, say, I might have somebody. Hey, we need another one here. So we would send out probably for every 10, we might get one that could convert, and it was out of luck. I mean, that's how messy that process was.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
you were selling the sizzle, and it was legitimate. Like the MSO's a legitimate strategy. It's not a gimmick, but you were selling the benefits, the advantages of having one. Now your firm sells the cost, the consequence, and risk in the absence of having one.
Well, that's right. Part of the paradigm shift, Chuck, was around the fact that we really have two clients. The first client is always the firm or the advisor that's referring to us.
Yeah.
And so we have to understand the challenges that those individual firms are dealing with. Typically have to around consistency of deal flow, maybe no standardized process. So their sales cycle is left to chance like ours was.
Yep.
And then commoditization. Oftentimes, it's really hard for these advisors to differentiate themselves in a noisy, crowded market. And then we had to understand the end client.
Hold on. I want to make sure everybody caught that. That was a big shift.
Yes.
You recognize in the MSO to the advisor or your network of advisors, your channel distribution was an answer, not for their client. It was first an answer for them and their advisory firm. It allowed you having access to the expertise of you and your team around MSOs, allowed them to have differentiated sales conversations in a commoditized and crowded space. It allowed them to create deal flow because this strategy allowed them to differentiate and build a healthier pipeline. So the first step was looking at the MSO not as a end client planning tool, but for the advisor that turns to you as a platform to help them grow their business. That's great. I didn't mean to cut you off. And then to the end client, go ahead.
Yeah. So for the end client, your privately held business generally has three specific problems we're called in to assist with. The first problem is around losing cash flow to tax risk. The second is continuity risk. Within that business, there's something that could cause the business value to be at jeopardy or left to chance. Third was family wealth. And that's the fact that the business is typically the largest asset for the business owner. And so planning a transition or exit in silo without all the collaborative parties, your estate planner, your financial advisor, left the largest asset, that transition, at risk. So when we approached it that way, now we had a very standardized process to address each of these problems through the lens of the advice that we can bring. And if it lines up within what we do and how we can help, then that would be a client that we could take on.
That's good.
Yep.
That was another shift I saw. You got clear on the problems that the MSO would shine under. It wasn't just for taxes. Who was that ideal client? And where can it really shine? Same thing with the advisor. And any one of those three are compelling problems. They're common and they're compelling. You should do another interview, not now, but what those three problems are, go into detail because you've really gotten clarity around them. It helps advisors too, help them determine whether an MSO might be a good candidate as a strategy for their clients by having clarity around that. That's good.
I think, Chuck, something else to point out, and it can't be underemphasized. When we first approached you, we didn't have a standard of advice. We didn't have a standardized sales process, right?
It was like the Wild Wild West.
Well, it is. Kind of deceive yourself into thinking that you have a process, but when every client is different or you're making exceptions every time, you have no process, right? So, I mean, that basically described us trying to figure something out and not having enough time or cash flow to keep getting it wrong. We had to do something different. But in working with other firms, because we probably have 30 different firms that refer to us now, I have found that same problem that existed at Guardian Tax Consultants isn't isolated to us. We were getting stuck.
You mean what problem wasn't isolated to you? The lack of systems?
Really the standardization of process and how we deliver advice. Or you could say it another way, the sales cycle, the advice cycle, to close a sale, cultivate a lead, close a sale, and then how that advice is handled throughout every aspect of the sale.
What's interesting, and clarification for those watching, Alex's firm was very process driven. I mean, you don't run and become an expert around a very sophisticated strategy and not understand the importance of systems, processes, efficiency, attention to detail. When an MSO is put in place, their job just started. Now they got to administer this thing. So systems and processes to them as entrepreneurs were not foreign. Yet what Alex is referring to was the sales and client building part of it was like the Wild Wild West. And that is really common, by the way.
That's exactly right. And if you think about when I was a solo practitioner or we were direct to client, I had a little more influence on that client's buying decision than I do because now I'm one step removed and I could potentially fall prey to another advisor or firm that's referred us that client. They're perhaps not having those systems or sales processes in place, and that ends up wasting everyone's time. So we had to figure out how to approach that in a way that created alignment, not a objection from the advisor because we've overstepped our bounds and told them what to do.
Yeah. Well, when you had your private practice, Alex, when you were taking the MSO to directly to the end client, the lack of selling systems and methodology and cycle, those things, you got away with it, and you grew handsomely. I mean, multiple seven-figure personal production. When you said, I don't want to do that anymore, and you wanted to take it to other advisors so they could use it with their clients, now your business was moving from a growth stage to a scale stage, and they're not the same. Growing a business and scaling it, they're not the same. And oftentimes they're mistaken as the same. So your thing was repeatability. So to scale this and do lots of MSOs, you had to create repeatability in a part of your business that wasn't real repeatable because it was all about you. Does that make sense?
No, it does. And the irony is the reason that we made a shift into this space, into a business to client model, was that I wanted to get out of having to convert every single lead and service every single lead myself. I wanted time freedom. That was one of my goals.
Yeah.
My challenge was I did not have a process and a repeatable system to where I could train somebody. I mean, even if I could, there was not a standardized way for them to design, execute, and service the end product.
It turned out to be an entrepreneurial interview.
All
Everybody listening's
working,
got the same problem.
we do. Listen, we haven't solved all the problems, but we're light years ahead. And I think about the Dan Sullivan book, The Gap in the Gain. I often fall prey to look at what is the gap? I haven't gotten there yet. And I don't stop to celebrate the gain. And the gain over the past 12 months from a holistic view of the culture, the team, the process, the mentors, the deal flow, of the trust and confidence, the subject matter expertise that we've continued to develop, IP, etc., really has been an outflowing of doubling down on not only the belief that we have something that other advisors would want to use, but also without us, we're leaving business owners at risk to very substantial problems that we can help them solve. And that's the purpose, right?
Yeah.
Every time a business owner retains more cash to grow the business, protect the enterprise, it means abundancy for the employees, the vendors, the clients. And so that's really where our purpose comes in. And it's not just, hey, maybe we can make a few dollars, right? I mean, the point of what we do, I believe, is driven by fundamental change in culture, protecting the backbone of small business, privately held companies that employ the majority of Americans, period.
Yeah. And it is probably not the right timing, but the way I look at what you do, because I know your audience, I was one. Every advisor wants to go in and do business planning, whether it's executive benefits, deferred comp, buy, sell, exit planning for the business owner, or estate planning for the ultra affluent family. And the challenge is, where's the money going to come from for the life insurance? You've cracked the code on that. You create cash flow where it didn't exist before for the ideal client because there's tax liability, they're profitable, they're growing. You've created cash flow where it didn't exist before, and you in turn use that cash flow for all the business planning that I just mentioned. That's what makes it so unique. I mean, every advisor probably has 4 clients like that, at least, that they could go in and make business planning or estate planning a little less painful and a lot more easy for them to go update or do better. Anyway, getting off track. So you've talked about a little bit about your old process. I remember that meeting too. I still tell the story. Jake, unfortunately, was the one who revealed it. Remember he described the intake form?
Oh, I do. He'll never live that down for sure.
And he acknowledged, and we'll use this as the segue to what you're doing now. He acknowledged, because you guys were playing the numbers game. A lot of times sales is thought of as a numbers game. and it's not. You were playing the numbers game. Like, we got to run as many MSO quotes as we can. And he acknowledged that on a good amount of quotes or proposals, you didn't even know the client's name, let alone what the client's looking to achieve. How could you possibly give anybody any quality advice that would be actionable if you didn't even know what they're looking to achieve, their goals, let alone their name? So that's why your pipeline sucked and you weren't making any money. And now tell us about how you've built a healthy pipeline and how you really do make good on your business promise to help clients win marquee clients. Just with that transition, talk a little bit about what is it that you've done and what are some of the components?
I think that goes back to, Chuck, the question I get asked all the time.
Yeah.
What do you guys do? Right. And the answer that I would have given you, well, we help clients save taxes and they can use that money, etc. No, the answer is we help firms create and win marquee clients, convert marquee clients, period. And we have to start with identifying what are those firms that want to work with us? Why do they want to work with us, right? What are the problems that they're coming to us that we can help alleviate? That was step one. And we kind of talked about that earlier. Deal flow, being able to plug into a system and immediately start cultivating new deals without additional overhead and time. And then knowing that we are going to be there to service those clients so long-term their reputation and brand value is not jeopardized, it's enhanced.
And so if we get too deep on that, I want you to highlight, because I think this is one of the most important things. When someone brings you an MSO candidate, it's usually a very important relationship.
Yes.
You say you help them win that client and you take pride in delivering high quality advice. How do you do that? They want to know, what is your process? What are the steps? Did you make sure that when you deliver the MSO, it's not in the form of a good idea, but it's high quality, actionable advice? So take us through that.
Yeah. So we have 7 core steps, Chuck. Step number 1, when a advisor brings us a client where this tool may be suitable, the first thing that we're going to do is talk to the client with the advisor. The only person that knows what the client is trying to achieve and what challenges they're experiencing is the client. That's step 1. And that could be a whole other interview on who really knows the client but the client. Step number 2 is we then take that information from the client and the advisor and we put together a document that outlines what we've learned. We put it together in a way that highlights the situation.
Is that your discussion document?
That's the discussion.
What are the sections, each of that? What are the building blocks in it?
Yeah, so we have the situation, about the business, about the client. The second is the goal of the client. And we try to limit it to 3, right? What are the top 3 goals? The third part is what are the top 3 challenges that are getting in the way of the client achieving those goals? And then we look at, if the client doesn't change, what is the cost and consequence and risk, which we would define as impact, of the client not changing? And that's key.
You've become a red flag ninja.
It's just been beat into me over and over again. But that's really important, because if you don't show them an actual consequence of change, what's the point? And if you don't tie it to the goal and to the challenge, then the change may be true, the consequence may be true, but do they care?
Let me do a real, that was awesome. Situation, the reason why we teach that, and Alex includes that, is because people want to be understood.
Yes.
And situation, you need to cover that. You need to let everyone in the room, the accountant, the attorney, the business partners, whoever the stakeholders are, anybody who has influence or involvement in the decision, they need to know that you understand who you're about to give advice to. That is the critical role of situation. The second one Alex mentioned is goals. They're not a nice thing to have. If Alex is going to use an MSO as a planning strategy and suggest that the company needs to restructure everything and create this new entity, what is that entity going to help this business owner achieve? You've got to know what the goals are. Otherwise, you're just saying an MSO is a good idea. You should have one. So what are we going to use the MSO to help this business owner achieve? And as Alex said, 3 bullets, no more.
Yes.
The other thing is that puts a stake in the ground. It forces everyone in the room to evaluate the MSO under the same lens. This is what we're trying to achieve. This came from the business owner. It's not my opinion. The business owners are looking to achieve these three things, and the evaluation of the MSO, the suitability of Alex's advice is based on, will it help us reach the goals or not? The third building block Alex talked about were the challenges or problems. What is disrupting? What's getting in the way of those goals? Well, one of them's taxes with the MSO. So in other words, the role this one plays, what is the MSO uniquely, operative word uniquely, what is the MSO uniquely helping this client overcome problem? What's the MSO uniquely helping the client overcome that's disrupting those goals? So we call these building blocks for a reason. And the last one, impact, as Alex said, that's the catalyst to change. It says why you should do this now, implement the MSO now, not 6 months from now. It's the cost, the consequence, and risk in the absence of the MSO. So when you go through that, the MSO is no longer a good idea, but it's now high quality, actionable advice. Anything else you want to add to that?
I think also from a standpoint of the referring advisor, it is the time to where perhaps they need insurance to transfer or mitigate risk, right?
Yeah.
The challenges and the goals, the MSO is not going to solve in isolation. The MSO can protect assets and create cash flow, but that cash flow has to be deployed through process, through a product, through a strategy in order to address a problem or to pursue a goal. And so if we've done our diligence right in the first two steps, then we've already set up the totality of the plan for the client, which makes adoption and deal stall much less resource intensive.
Yeah, that's a great point. You use these tax, the new cash flow to solve business or estate planning that also life insurance can uniquely solve. So it's not just about cash flow, it's about the simultaneous pursuit of business estate planning needs that are uniquely solved through life insurance. Yeah.
That kind of brings me back because the second step that we have was creating that discussion document. Well, the third step is presenting it. And what we learned the hard way is that in order to present that document, we need what I would define as the stakeholders on the call. That could be the CPA, could be the estate attorney, could be the spouse, could be obviously business partners, but we need everybody that has a vested interest in business owner is going to rely upon for advice on that call. If not, we're going to likely have to do it again, and it's a waste of time. So step 3 is that stakeholder call. And if we've done our diligence, because most of the work for the sales is on the front end, it just is, right? That's the difference in commoditizing something and sending out a document really fast without a name versus deep due diligence to show understanding and how you're the best choice when comparing contrasting strategies in different companies to deliver their advice, right? That's what we learned the hard way. And so out of that, we move to step 4. If they say, hey, let's now verify that all of this is suitable, we have to look at their financials, right? We've been talking to the client, but now we need to do a deep dive on what I would call the quantitative information, right? That is the last 3 years of personal business returns, PFS. And then once that report comes back, it's going to verify what we've stated. It's going to reassert what the challenges, goals are, what the insurance planning opportunities may be, or the different process or products that are going to help solve those problems. And then from there, that step says, yes, this is suitable. We can move enough money. There's enough cash available. It solves enough goals. We can now quantify what is the difference if we do nothing versus if we do something. And it's got a nice bow on it because it's a reasonable comp study and signed off by a tax attorney. It's objective. We send it out to somebody else to verify our own information.
I love it.
And then the fifth step is we get to work opening up the MSO and starting underwriting, if that's part of what the solution is, for the different insurance products. And that could be a census, right? It just depends on what the problem was and what the solution is. The sixth step is the MSO is open, but now we have to get the policies and everything in force, right? And the seventh and last step is quality control check. Everything is in place, and now we move them over to annual servicing. Those are the 7 steps.
Dude, just awesome. You've gone from Wild Wild West to a really tight client engagement and sales process. What is your sales cycle? Is it shortened or got longer?
So it is definitely shortened. The first sales cycles that we had, I mean, it could have been as long as 9 months, and insurance could have taken, in total from start to finish, a year. Now the sales cycle could be as short as starting an engagement within 2 weeks and finishing an MSO in 60 days, to insurance being paid out in 90. So
Awesome.
maybe we've shrunk it by 75%.
And how about, does everyone listen can relate to this, when you give perfectly sound advice to a client and they don't take action, we call stalled deal or client procrastination. What happened to the frequency of stalled deals? They go up or down?
They definitely reduced. And I'd love to tell you we don't have stalled deals. We still do, but most deals are oversights in our process. When maybe we made an exception or skipped a step, that's what generally creates the stalled deal. And the reason is, if we follow every single step, if the deal's not going to close, they'll self-select out before we get to suitability, which is that step 4, right? Going into that process. So, it's a continual learning curve. We're not perfect, but we're vastly improved from where we were 24 months ago.
Yeah. Well, the fact that you have a process now around sales, entire playbook, it allows you to do what you just said. You said, when we do have a stall deal, you can see why it happened. So process gives you insight. You can't fix something or improve something, particularly sales and client building. You can't improve sales performance if you can't see it. And now that you have this framework, it allows you to see things and really deliver on your business promise of helping advisors. If they bring you an opportunity and it fits, then you're going to help them win the case, not sell an MSO. Awesome. Dude, I got to bounce. If you want to do another one, this is great. I think it's great for people to see inside or behind the scenes of what you guys do, because they need to have that experience before they bring a client. The more they know about you as an entrepreneur and how you handle cases, I think that gives advisors confidence to what would happen if they did bring an important relationship to you. And you do such an awesome job. I'm proud to call you a friend and a client. You guys are day and night.
Well, I appreciate you, Chuck.
And D-Bomb's getting you that black belt.
He's going to give me a black. I said, listen, I'd love to have a black
red
belt.
flag black belt.
Yeah, that's your new graduation. You get a black belt.